Pardesi Beats.
What's up, everybody? You're tuned into Pardesi Beats Unplugged. Welcome into today's episode. In today's episode, we're bringing back one of our most favorite topics, one of our most popular topics, that is Paghs and drugs. Today, we'll be specifically talking about education and careers. I am Em Tidwal. With me today. We have Kushwant Singh, Simran Kral, and the one and only Patwant Singh. Hi, boys.
Hello.
Good.
Hello.
So,
Very
Paghs
sleepy.
and drugs. Yeah, very sleepy. It's if you don't know, we record these at nighttime. So,
Everyone has to go to sleep.
we talked about that last episode. We're not talking about that again.
Okay,
But
fine.
Paghs and drugs, one of our most popular topics, where we try to talk about our experience as Indo-Canadians, as first generation immigrants, children of immigrants, and our experience navigating through our identity. We've talked about kind of stereotypes, expectations, online dating even. So today, this was the brainchild of Simran, so I'll throw it over to him. But education and career, I feel like, is a
We're
very
gonna have to crack a
interesting-
cold one for this, Simran. So let's get it rolling.
Today. First of all, I'd like to say it's good to be back in civilization. Good to be back with you boys. Seeing you all,
Welcome back.
your beautiful faces, even though
Welcome
it's
back.
entirely virtually. Paghs and drugs, volume 4. I think we're at now.
Yeah.
Education and careers. This is another topic very dear to me, and I'm sure all of you guys as well. We, over the course of our upbringings, and it's become sort of stigmatized and stereotyped that the typical South Asian or Indo-Canadian parent would expect their child to achieve one of 3 kinds of career paths. The doctor, the lawyer, the engineer, the holy trinity, you might say. The lasan adrak te gande, the tadka. That is the career fields that they choose for their children, because God knows you don't choose those. They are chosen for you in a lot of cases. And what kind of pressures that can apply to a kid that maybe doesn't live up to those expectations. Not everyone can be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. Certainly I couldn't. I didn't live up to those expectations. Not everybody wants to be those things, even if they have the aptitude. And then what's more is not everybody knows what else is out there. And I think it's fairly apt for the 4 of us to take this topic on, because none of us are any of those things. I think, Malik, you're probably the closest in your professional career, or well, it's not that this isn't professional, but in your
Day job as
your
Batman.
alter ego.
In my
there.
alter ego, yeah.
But for the rest of us, we all have jobs that lie somewhere along the spectrum away from that holy trinity. I'll toss it off to you guys, but just as a start, I went to school for to be a doctor. My parents wanted me to be a doctor from high school, or well on before that. I remember we had those conversations when I was in the first grade.
In the first days.
Yeah, first days. It's just like, oh,
Dekh sada munda doctor banana.
Yeah.
Oh, kinna cute hai sada put. Oh, good boy.
Yeah. And it really wasn't until I was even struggling my way through undergrad, the first go round, and then through biology, and then into well after that, I didn't realize what I really wanted to do until after that. I don't even know if I'm still doing it. It's my career has evolved over over a number of years, and the things that I want to do with my life have evolved accordingly.
But I think you have a very well-grounded career now. So
yeah, you might say, like, right now, if for those of you that don't know, I work as a
gold miner
geologist. Yeah, as a geologist slash geophysical and geotechnical operator. Yeah, operator. I'm a operator. You might say it's a difficult sort of job description. I basically work in surveying. That's the closest way I can explain it. But
he really knows things from the ground up, type of thing, if you know what I mean.
God damn it. But we all had very, very varied career paths and to the point where we are now, and it's not like it's even a very finite thing where we are now. I mean, we're constantly evolving, changing, educating ourselves and stuff like that, and there's stigmas around that too. You know, the idea of like constantly being in school or not being fully evolved, these fully baked adults. We're something either short of that or something more than that. I haven't really figured out what just yet, and I think that's also part of the stigma as well. But Pat, why don't I throw it over to you? What's how has your career field evolved, and what kind of pressures have you faced?
Well, I'm not going to disclose my other career, although many who know me know what it is. I just don't want to put it out there publicly.
Sure, that's fair.
It's easy to guess if you really know me or, catch some of our jokes, but at the same time, I'll leave it as being a little bit of a mystery. I do fight crime. I'll say that much. But at the end of the day, regardless, I've been in many different careers and different jobs. The latest being in the media, which everybody who's watching and listening know about, being with Pardesi Beats, just Pardesi Beats, then Pardesi Beats Power Play, World FM, Radio Punjab before that, all those things. That was sort of fitted for me because that was Punjabi radio, right? And I'm a Punjabi guy who, not at this moment, I'm undercover right now. Every Pugs and Drugs episode, I've been unplugged. So it's we'll call them.
We've only had one bug on this like out of the
one bug in the whole thing, and that was
only been one bug and a lot of drugs. Ronaldo.
But I had to plug up for that one. But yeah, so regardless, many of my careers, because I was working in another career in the media that was not Punjabi based; it was mainstream based, and even that and a few other careers where I've been publicly facing. I've been a person that faces the public, wearing a pug, especially earlier on in my days, because I started working in, the late 90s, you can argue, right? Early 2000s. And even then it was sort of like, oh, there's a turbaned man who's applying for this job. And, that might not look good because I worked in sales for a long time. And so I was judged based on my looks, but I also got the stereotype like, hey, you're Punjabi, right? And I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm Punjabi. And they're like, a lot of taxi drivers, you think you can make some flyers and go out to the cab companies and sell some phones? I worked for a cell phone company, by the way, for a long time.
Somebody asked you that?
What's that? Yeah, no, 100%. I was.
That's wild.
I was asked that, and they asked me and another good friend of mine, who were both, African / England turbaned wearing Punjabi men. Shout out to Rajveer, to go out and cold call by going to these locations and speaking with.
Oh my God.
Taxi companies, and I thought because it was commission based, I was like, okay, whatever. Punjabi guys, right? No problem.
Punjabi.
But the fact that I was asked to do that solely on the purpose of my appearance and, that fact that I wore a turban, it was a little bit, I kind of thought about that a little bit. And I was like, whatever. At the end of the day, I got to make a paycheck. And this is commission based, or a majority of the wage was. Other jobs, where I was sort of behind the scenes, nobody really cared. However, when I was in those staff meetings and those sort of meetings where you're doing brainstorming, like kind of how we do off air or off recording about ideas and things, and like in the media and things, and they're like, oh, so for this episode we should do this, for this one we'll do this giveaway, And so, you know, at the end of the day, it was always weird. Like I always felt a little bit like an outsider. Like they all talked to me and spoke to me like I was not one of them, yet I was somebody coming in externally, and they were very careful in talking to me. However, with that sort of a contrast is once they got to know me, like I've said this on the show before, out of all of us, well, maybe not compared to Simran, but the rest of us, I'm probably the most redneck one in these four squares other than Simran, right? I think Simran, me and you are tied in that sense.
Yeah.
Different ways, right?
Yeah, you got
like
a few legs up on me in some areas. But.
Well, only the age wise and years wise, but other than that, I think, you know, you'll outrun me in the long term in that regard. But regardless, you know, they're like, oh my God, this guy's like a cowboy with a turban driving around in a pickup truck. And I'm like, yeah, I even got an axe in the back, you know? And so it's like, they got to know me. And they're like, oh, he's, you know, we don't even
he's a lot more white than we thought.
He's from Alberta. Yeah. And, you know, so I was actually going to school in Victoria, BC. And one of my friends there was like, I don't even see the turban anymore. Like, I don't see it. And it's kind of weird. And that is in my memory bank so much because it's like, I didn't take that as like a compliment. Like I was like, well, you should see it. Because with all my friends, you guys, I see your pugs and I'm like, yo, that's sick. That's a sick pug you tied today. Right. That's a part of who I am. So I kind of felt offended by hearing that. But at the same time, I understood what they meant by that. And what they meant was like, it's not something that's different anymore, that they just see me as being who I am. So I took it a couple of different ways. But the fact that I had to think that intricately about that one comment and it still sticks with me shows me and allows us all to sort of reflect. And I'm sure at least all of us in this four squares, and Malik included for other reasons, like you have very close turban friends and family members. You know what it's like, right? First of all, we're Punjabi, we're Sikh, we're already a minority in our ethnic background, even though we're Canadians. But then to look that part in these jobs, in these schools, I remember applying for digital media design at Nate and walking in with them doing interviews. And they're like, well, and you could tell, you know.
Yeah, they're on their back foot right away.
I'm sure all of you have felt this, oh, it's a turban guy. Oh, you're not. We talked to you on the phone, but you had this pretty redneck accent. And now we see this very cultured looking man in front of us, right?
Oh, you do a pretty good job. There's no accent. Where are you from?
Yeah, and we're just on the phone like, oh yeah, man. Like, of course, yes, I can totally answer these questions. And then suddenly they see us and they're like, oh, okay. Not what we pictured. He doesn't look like you know, the dad from Family Guy. I'm not going to reference anything for copyrights, but I did. That's okay. I'll leave it at that. But so
I think that speaks to the point of like we've talked about it before on Bugs and Drugs. It's just our cultural identity.
Yeah,
we are trying to find our way with our roots and our heritage, but at the same time, like what Simran said, we get asked the question of, oh, where are you from?
Where are you from?
I'm from
I was
Edmonton.
born in Edmonton.
Yeah, and then you gotta explain your Canadianness to this complete stranger.
And I mentioned this before. I will refuse to say I'm from anywhere except Edmonton.
Yeah, same.
To the point where they automatically realize that their wording is wrong.
Yeah, they're like, hey, this is a weird thing to ask a complete stranger.
Yeah,
maybe you should rethink this.
Yeah,
and you can tell when somebody
means well.
We've talked about this. Yeah, you can tell when someone means well. I was on White Ave with my cousin, and he sensed it right away too. That this old white man. We were standing at a red light on White Ave. And we're about to cross the street over by the subway on the end of the street, but in front of the Chevy dealership.
Yeah,
and this guy just gave me like too many double takes, and then right away he's like, "You're a very nice. Oh, what a great Gursick you are."
What he said?
I was like, "Thank you for being factually correct in your vocabulary," but that was the weirdest shit I ever heard in my life come out.
But not knowing your soul, mouth. Are you truly a Gursick? That's something.
Yeah, I was like, well, I had my pog on at the time. I was heading over to meet with my cousin to like just scarf down
totally a Gursick
barbecue as possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
avoid all the meat.
I've never heard a story like that.
That was
it was just like, hey, you're a really good Gursick. So that guy obviously knows a little bit too.
Yeah, what a handsome young Gursick you are. It was just something along the line. It was just like the weirdest interaction.
Did he sound like that old guy from Family Guy?
Yeah, he really did.
You know what I'm talking about now.
Yeah. Why don't you come over here, paperboy?
That's like somebody who maybe is like they've had experiences with like somebody who's Punjabi or Sikh, and they like feel like, hey, I'm confident enough to be like, I have some sort of relatability with this young kid or whatever.
Yeah, and they assume that that's like a normal thing.
And it's not a bad thing. I personally welcome those things because people are trying, right?
It's weird.
That's what like what he said, right? Like you can tell like when somebody's like not the intent of like what they're trying to say, right? There's
exactly
nothing really bad with that,
and that's very different from someone asking. So that's weird but not offensive. And then there's like, where are you from, which is not weird, but it is offensive.
Yeah,
because in any other context, it would be acceptable. If a white person was asking another white person, hey, where are you from? That's like kind of a normal thing. You know, I'm from
color.
Moncton,
kind of ask other people of color.
Yeah. Then
it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, there's obviously no implication there, right? You're just
and you know what? Maybe we should reflect, and maybe they don't mean. Maybe we're just taking it as where are you from, as in.
I think that's what it is a little bit too, because like sometimes we grow up knowing that like, hey, you got to be on your toes. Sometimes there's people who aren't allies to you.
Exactly.
I've had a lot of experiences where that question is just purely just to get to know somebody. You know, because of elders in our family, right? I've heard them converse with just random people, and even
that's
even
genuine curiosity.
Like just white folks that will get that asked that question, and it's just exactly that's what it is. It's a conversation piece, right? To really kind of just pass some time and just had
and it wasn't always so racially charged, but increasingly I find that especially in the with as politically polarizing things are becoming, that's a dog whistle for me. And we've talked about that. Like that's a trigger for me to know, okay, if I dug deep enough in this conversation, I'm gonna find some things I don't like about this person that are going to be potentially harmful to me, physically and emotionally.
Yeah. What about Kush though? Because I mean, he hasn't.
Yeah, Kush.
Yeah. So I like Simran. You talked a lot about you know, like kind of like how we preface like the episode here, talking about like parents' expectations and stuff, being like a, you know, Punjabi or turban fellow, and the three kind of the deathly triangle or deathly hollows or whatever of the jobs, you know, doctor, lawyer, engineer, those three options. And so bless up. And I have to say, like, it's an experience that I never had to deal with. I feel, you know, when I talk to a lot of people or whatever, I feel like I really had some like solid parenting, like kind of push. Like, see, the thing is, like, maybe Patwant, since he's the elder brother, and then there's another sibling in between.
Yeah, there's an age difference.
And I'm the last one, right? So like, I feel like, you know, strategies may have been different for him versus me, right?
Yep.
So like, I think like I've had a lot of really cool, more realistic like approaches that were done to me, like from my parents' angle, right? So like there was never really a push for me to join any of those three things. Like I was kind of always encouraged to be like, hey, just do something, make sure you actually do something.
Don't be stupid, essentially.
And like, you know, go to school and get like try to find like a job, right? And then so my dad, you know, and he's still right to this day, in my opinion. Like he's like, I think you'll do great in trades. And that's not the way I took my education after high school. And even like now working the job I do, he's probably correct in his assessment, the original assessment of like 15 years ago, whatever it is. Like, so he was like, do something in trades. Like, you'll probably be good with that. And at the time I was like, I probably will, but like, I just don't feel like that's something I want to do. So then I studied.
That's very interesting.
I did do a typical kind of like cookie cutter thing out of high school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So you talked about we don't really ever know, or we might not even know now. Like so, like back then, I definitely had no clue. I'd signed up for like pre-pharmacy at for Grant MacEwan, right? And I was like, and I was enrolled. And I got in, and I started like doing those like science-based classes at Grant MacEwan, and let me tell you, man, like that was not a good
kick
experience.
to the teeth, ain't that right?
Yeah, because I was just like, yo, at a certain point, you're like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, you're just like,
you're in those
like,
labs.
I'm here, and I'm like, but I shouldn't be here because I don't give a shit about this, right?
None of this means anything to me, and nor will it ever mean anything to me.
Yeah, I took it on the thing where I was like, I like chemistry, like I liked chemistry and like bio and stuff.
Nature is cool. Yeah, it's all good.
It was cool. I was like, I had like an affinity to that. I did like well in the classes, and I was like, maybe this will be something for me. And I learned that it wasn't. Especially doing organic chemistry, you're just like, okay, I don't really, I'm not vibing with this. But either way, like there was a general lack of disinterest for me, like personally, and then also just like in terms of engagement, right? Because I don't mind sharing. Like I slipped into academic probation. I would just go to the classes, go home, and like just play Call of Duty. Like,
bro, I've been there.
Yeah, like I bought a Xbox 360 just to play Call of Duty Modern Warfare right online all the time.
Yeah.
And then so that was like my thing. I would like go home, just play.
I didn't even go home. Yeah, I was like in cab basement, like watching
a lot of people stay on campus, but
cartoons on my laptop.
Yeah. Just watch
That's
shows,
what I
download
did.
the shows, watch them, right?
Yeah.
Things like that. Like,
or
so
we went
I
to
didn't do
Cameron
that.
Library, and I did not talk to girls.
Yeah.
That was my first year, just staying on Cameron Library and just awkwardly just not talking to girls. Most people talk to girls. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna pretend like you're not even there.
Yeah, you went to Cameron basement just to stay there till like 3 a.m. to do the same.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyways, like that was like for me, like in university, I was like, okay, no. Then I switched. Then I was like, okay, this is like maybe like the brown style parenting that came in, because like, as like a white person, or maybe someone who's a little bit more Western culturized, like they can be a person of color too. Like, it's like you might move out, you might be on your own, right? Like you might be having to like control your own life, right? But for me, it's like, no, typical Desi kind of family, like your Desi culture, you're at home still until, whatever you get married or whatever it is. And then so the threat for me was, look, man, like you got to be serious about your school. You're on probation. It's not going so hot for you. And this is like at the end of year 2 for me now, right? It's like, yo, I'm going to kick you out. Like my dad just threw that at me, right? He's like, I'm going to kick you out of the goddamn house. And in a more dad way, Punjabi dad way, or you guys know my dad.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, that was enough to be like, okay, I'm going to take this a little bit more serious. And I did. Like I actually picked up like, the calendars at universities.
Yeah.
And I was like, I read through them all. And I was like, what am I interested in? Like, what seems appealing to me? And, a lot of those technical things or like more artistic things were, but also like, I was like, business seems really cool, right? Like commerce seems like a really cool thing, because I can be a people's person for sure. And like, there's a lot of those things that I'm like, I had like a lot of like aspirations to kind of go in that world at that age. Because my worldview was different too than it is today in terms of like how systems work, capitalism, those kind of things. So I was more inclined to like, this thing seemed pretty cool. And I honestly like had a great experience doing commerce with MacEwan, and like, it was amazing. Like I had a great time at school, right? Damn. Yeah. So the cool thing again wasn't like, there wasn't any pressure necessarily from parents to be like, you need to do this. It's like, the thing was, it's like, yo, read the calendar, figure it out yourself.
Do something.
But do something. Do it, but don't F around, man. Like, like you can't mess your life.
I want to jump on that point. Yeah, I want to jump on that point, because I think that expectation of our parents is like, hey, like we came to this country and like we struggled with labor jobs and like stuff like that, and we don't want you necessarily to go down that path. So hey, all we know is like, become a doctor, become an engineer, become a lawyer. But then again, like Kush has talked about trades. unreal. Like you make a lot of money working trades.
Yeah.
You can make a lot of money working media. You can make
especially
a lot
in
of money.
Alberta, like
Yeah,
it's very, very like there's so many avenues to success. And that's the interesting thing is just like your parents saw that success in our community.
Yeah.
And they saw that it was possible out of those three occupations. And they immediately clung to them as pillars of like respect and authority. And also there was a pay scale that matched it.
Yeah.
Right. And
There's a prestige too, right?
Yeah, there's definitely prestige. My mom had this weird sort of association with not so much what a doctor did and how it related to my interests. I didn't really feel that she saw me as a person. She saw me as this concept of what I could be compared to the doctor she worked with. She was always in a medical field, and she had more of an affinity for how a doctor dressed, and with their white lab coats and these dress shirts, these monogram dress shirts and cufflinks and ties.
Yeah.
And seeing me and my appreciation for fashion, most of the time anyway. Half the time I look like a slob nowadays. But with that compared to how her son's interests matched up with what a doctor does and the aptitude of a doctor. And so like when I was in biology, I've loved sciences from like day one. And I've always been someone that's thirsted deeply for a more intimate knowledge of our world. And that still continues to drive a lot of my passions today. But I did not have the aptitude that was necessary to excel in that field. And beyond that, I did not have the interest to do that either. I hate hospitals, to put it shortly. And then I spent, years and years just sort of barely scraping through my degree. And I remember having a conversation with my dad where it was just like, after I get out of this degree and I have to apply for med school, there is no chance in hell I'm getting into any kind of med school. Like, unless you guys ship me off to India and you guys pay an exorbitant amount of money for me to fake some kind of medical degree, like I became like some kind of dunga doctor, like out of like South America, right? And come back here somehow and like become a doctor, right? This isn't happening for me. Like we need to reassess. And I said it as we need to reassess these goals, this understanding of what needs to happen. And there was like there's a lot of pride hurt there. There's like, oh man, like how are we going to rationalize this? Like, what are people going to say?
That's the worst.
That's the worst. And I'm just like, I've been struggling with this so long, and just for me to say this to you guys has been like so difficult. It's just like I can't live up to these expectations. I don't know how else to explain it to you. Like I'm not. Well,
it's a little bit of like what we grew up in Canada, and I'm not knocking not growing up in Canada. What I'm saying is, our parents' expectation is a little bit of the culture where families have come from before, where it's more of a unionized family. Like everybody looks out for each other. It's a collective. Our son will become a doctor, and we're all going to be out of poverty. Because he's going to be the torch. The torch is going to pass on to him. And none of the sisters, none of the daughters are going to have that torch. By the way, these old school thinking, right? I'm not saying people who think this way are bad. It's just an old cultural thought process because it was male passing down to the son, and then the son was successful and the dad could chill and take care of the grandkids and so forth. And the
interesting thing about that was that you have this dynamic that passes through. And I'm not saying like my sister doesn't deal with like gender norms and the pressures on like of that. They're very different, and in some cases they're much more extreme for her.
They're a little bit weirder here.
But there was that issue of pride, and then also this sensation that of like you've failed your parents. There's these expectations, and you're trying to acknowledge this defeat.
You failed your family in a sense.
It's like this huge.
You've taken that car going down the highway and just took a left turn.
bro.
that
Right into the
highway of
ditch.
generations
That's
of
it.
forefathers,
And you killed
you know,
everybody. You killed
you
everyone. Everyone's
like your
dead.
ancestors
Sorry,
are
Johnny.
throwing up. They have
Everybody's
diseases wherever they
everybody's
are
crying.
because you screwed
That's it.
everybody up.
Leprosy.
Yeah, and-
Kiss de bani reh gaye.
I know, and now
Oh,
God's gonna
Latamba,
strike you with lightning in your
Bus.
eyeballs, and yeah, it's just
You're
so.
dead.
You're gonna implode.
You're gonna die. You're gonna
Even
bust.
the devil will urinate
That's
on
it.
you.
Finish.
So that's the problem with our society, right? So we come here and we're taught like, hey, you can be whatever you want. It's capitalism. You can become the king of the universe, and you can become King Kong's mom, and you can be anything you want. And gosh darn it,
dude. And that's the thing. Because not understanding how the education system works here, it was like, Oda munda ban gaya. That guy his son became a doctor. You know, this guy, his son became a lawyer. Odi kudi ban gayi engineer.
And one more thing, what girl is going to marry you?
Yeah, kene tere naal vyah karna. Kene sanu kudi deni.
And then what if the kid was like, Mom, I don't want a girl to marry, I want a boy.
Yeah,
and then that's a whole other spectrum that we
I like the black women's.
or somebody's homosexual. Then what?
Yeah, what are you gonna say?
There you go.
But that's a whole different thing. But what I'm saying is,
you on the highway, right?
What I'm saying is,
culture,
and yeah,
yeah.
And the argument was, and my mom went through the system too. She became a nurse while we were in high school. Like,
yeah,
while we were like, she went back to school in her 40s and she became a nurse, and I'm immensely proud of my mom for that, you know. And it takes a really strong-willed, powerful person to do that, and that's definitely my mom. But it was like this thing of like, whoa, I did this and other people are doing this. You guys had every privilege, every opportunity to succeed. There was no reason. We didn't ask you to work. How could you not become this? This should be easy for you. And that was just like, holy Christ. Like, it was like,
in a way, there's only three main choices for our family, culturally speaking, as you mentioned. But for us, our schools were like, here's a job fair. You can be any of these things.
Go be any of these things.
And then you see like music producer, or you see like videographer sitting there. Steven Spielberg comes and said, I made this dinosaur. And you're just like, yo,
this is some cool stuff, but my mom's not going to like that.
Yeah, but you don't know that right away until you go home and be like, oh,
yeah.
Like,
no.
You will be the doctor.
I'm going to be a marine biologist. And they're like, oh, kinne ke paise banaunda saal de? And you're just like, oh, I don't know. Te bacha phir kithe kaam karke janda? And then you're just like, oh, I don't know. And then I can look at a shark's bum hole though in a microscope. It's really nice. And then you're just like, acha.
I feel like we're touching on like two important points here. Like, we talked about how we struggled with figuring out the education system.
Yeah.
We've all shared our kind of experience. Even with me, I was like, all right, I'm finished high school. I guess I'm going into sciences because I have to become a doctor, lawyer, or an engineer. I picked doctor. So I'm going into sciences. But at the same time, we also struggled in explaining our parents have no idea what a marine biologist is.
There's no concept of that.
And they don't like, and I guess to Kush's point, like, your dad had the understanding of like, yo, trades, that's a solid area to work in.
Yeah.
A lot of parents, a lot of people that come here are new here, they really want their kids to succeed, but that communication between what the kid wants or what the kid's interests are and what the potential options are, like a marine biologist, that's solid.
Bro.
Working as an audio engineer, there's some really great jobs out there. Trades, we've already talked.
Dude, it's even harder to understand those types of jobs too, like as in our shoes. Yeah. Because it's like, since we're like, especially with like all the media you intake and everything, TV shows, like you just see typical just cookie cutter jobs, right? And you're like, that's what the world is, and then you don't even know some of these things are out there. That's another thing. It's like I started it's like, oh, this is a possibility.
I started in sciences and I did genetics for 2.5 years because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be a doctor.
I remember that phase.
And now the field that I'm working in, I didn't even know that existed. Like, I knew that from TV shows. When like, I don't know how to get into that field. I didn't.
It was like Frasier.
Well, know, also Moloch's not really Moloch. He's a clone of him.
But dude, my parents, my family has a very tenuous grasp of what I even do for a living. They have like, I say geologist, and they're like, and that's how my dad kind of like explains it to his coworkers and his buddies, and like the rest of my family is like, oh, geologist, and they're like, oh, cha cha cha, and then literally no one knows.
No one
what
knows what
I'm
the
doing.
hell it is.
And it's just like, honestly, some days even I don't know. Like I've been out of school since 2019. I don't think I've really ever done anything remotely related to geology, even though my job title has been geologist or junior geologist. And even when I talk with other geologists, it's like, yeah, this isn't geology. I'm doing everything but geology. And then my
zoology,
my other job is like, I'm a woodworker, and somehow that's more relatable to people than the thing I went to school for. Yeah, because it's a trade. Even then, I have no formal education in that. I have, like whatever I picked up on YouTube,
family
like
passed
whatever.
down.
Yeah. And then there's that genetic component to it, right?
But that's also like more applicable because people understand what
somehow immediately they get that. And I can talk to
okay.
people. Yeah, I can relate to people on that level more so than I can about
as a zoologist.
And either none of these passions I had developed at any point in my 18 years of public school or my 5+ years of post-secondary up until that point. It was the year off that I had from after school that I realized, you know what, I really, really love building stuff and I want to turn it into a business. I had been doing it as a hobby the whole time, just to help me relax in the summertime, whatever.
Sometimes that taking time off to discover your brain, and the world can help.
Yeah, and but I knew I wouldn't be able to just.
Now imagine this: like out of high school, we actually took a year or two off to figure out who we were. Like, hey, do I actually want to become a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, or like, do I want to pursue this passion of music? Do I want to pursue this passion of trades, gaming, video design?
Maybe I should. Maybe I should spend some time volunteer. Yeah. We went to Paghs and there was that exit project where we had to do a certain number of hours of volunteering. I wish we had actually taken that seriously and like volunteered at real places.
But even like,
you don't even understand the importance at that age.
Yeah.
You don't.
I would agree. Like
until you need to do it for money.
Yeah. Well, you like wake up every day. If I took 2 years off and drove truck, that would have been great.
Yeah.
That would have been fantastic. Then go into education or whatever I want to do.
Man, if I had done my fieldwork jobs like when I was 21, 22, I'd be in a whole different state of mind, and I'd probably be in a completely different state in my career. Or like, even if I had that time off and I had, decided to like start my woodworking business then, and, gone to a vocational school where I would, learn, cabinet making or
how to apply like the skills that you
I can be a red steel carpenter or something like that.
But
now.
You also wouldn't have gotten to this point if you didn't take the path you took. So
that's the other.
And this is like where I also think like it gets, there's like reasons why this happens, right? Because like I look at it as, okay, us, like there's a whole system, right? Like the coming out of high school and like figuring out what to do with life. Like everyone has to do it, whether you're a person of color or not, it doesn't matter, right? So everyone has to like realize like that. But some people know what the hell they want to do, right? For example, so I kind of like take this back then to like to parenting, like what we were talking about before. It's like sometimes maybe that's your parents' job, but for like parents like ours who came here and they're like figuring out what life is, their main job was survive, make money, get these kids
make sure our kids are good, like they're set up.
They don't have those skills first off necessarily to know those things. That's where they like learn from you, right? And then the other thing also is communication from like the like kind of India style, right? Like the culturally is different, right? It's but the 130 mentioned, it's like a different time, right? So like that style doesn't necessarily work with Western style. So there's a lot of challenges there where it's like we can be a little bit more explorative and like want to learn and like we need like a why before we kind of do stuff. That's not the case with our parents necessarily. It's like, it's just, you need to do it, right? Like it's like it's a must. And then you don't understand that always, right? Like I said, like some people like they knew what they wanted to do a long time ago. Like
a little bit of that's privilege too, right? Like we have the opportunity to take our time. And where our parents look at us and they're like, you're insane. At 25, my dad had at my age, he had 2 kids. Yeah. He had 2 kids and a mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we see that like trend, like like
Yeah, I mean, there's
your
a lot
life
of
starts a
components.
little later in that
Yeah,
that traditional sense, right?
there's a
Like
lot of
marriage,
components to
kids.
that. There's
Yeah.
the economy, there's the way education is going, there's so many factors to that, and then it's the way my parents struggled, like,
Yeah.
and that's our shared
Plus,
trait is where, like,
I think it's just human nature to always switch what you want to do as well. Like
Yeah.
that's
You get
like a
tired of things.
business stat too. It's like people change their careers multiple times throughout their life, right? Like, so like when I was studying commerce, it was like 2.5 times, and that was like over 10 years ago, so it's probably changed quite a bit now. It's probably more, I would assume, considering how the world is now, and with how work is for our
multiple streams of
millennials and stuff, right?
Like
So
that too, right?
yeah,
Like-
right. So there's a lot of different options too.
Pat, and you
But-
know this too, is like I knew that I was not a people person from doing gigs with Pat.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, you learn about yourself.
so Pat's been in the music business in Edmonton for a minute, and I, from like high school to like university, I was playing dole. A lot of my gigs were with Pat, and we've had many discussions about this. It's just like I gradually grew an intense hatred for anybody talking to me at all
It's
over the
kind of
course of
funny
that
because
time.
of
Yeah.
the nature of the gigging world in itself, especially Punjabi music, and you're the dole player. Everybody's gonna kid you, right?
Yeah.
And,
And I was like, don't touch me, don't look at me. I'm not dressing up for this. Don't even, just stand in the corner and dance. Don't even fucking look
You
at me.
got jaded, but that's like how I felt too with, like, because I was a customer service manager, right?
Yeah, and you got that. Yeah.
At a certain point, it was just like it hit me where I was like, okay, I'm doing this work, but it's like I do not care about
this work,
your problems with furniture or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
so it's like I have no problem talking to you. Like everyone I work with is pretty nice relatively. It's not bad, right? Like, I can do my job efficiently, effectively. It's not the hardest, but coming into like work, and then like especially knowing like what I did my education on, like it wasn't related to what I had aspired to want to go into. It was also like, okay, this isn't probably for me, right? So like I've had opportunities now in my current job. So now like I'm in administration, right? And I work for the government. So
Government
how would
job.
it kind of government, right? I'm a government banda. And the thing is, it's like there's been roles that have been open now for like team leader or whatever, right? And I've just looked at them, and then people have told me in my coworkers, it's like, maybe you should try for that. But I'm also like, no, I know what that entails. I've done that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm not down for that now. Right. So like, the experience part like helps you also shape like where you want to go. The
The
education
crown weighs heavy on your head.
Yeah, because like the education carries you so far, it gets your foot into the door, maybe just because of how you sell it. But then that experience changes throughout time, and you change what you want to do. Because like now I feel like I'm not in the field I want to be in, right? Like I feel like I want to go back into more a creative side. That's really where I feel
You
like
might be
my
ready for
heart
change.
is tugging. Right?
When I was in high school, like when I was getting out of high school, ironically speaking, I was told by a few teachers that, you guys, your generation is going to change their careers like two times minimum.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, I mean, you can argue that I even did that, but
you
like
did more, right?
Well, a career, let's say, right?
Okay,
so
sure.
Not
you
so
can
much
argue-
job, but yeah.
Like I've had many jobs, but
Yeah,
careers,
I guess
maybe I've
similar
had a couple, right?
Similar career path, yeah.
I'm sorry, but so they were saying that our generation, we probably have, let's say, 2 careers based on those teachers, but next generation, I think boredom kicks in, and there's also a little bit of FOMO that kicks in that goes into people's brains.
Yeah,
like, hey, I want to do that, and now with the Instagram effect, which is kind of like, oh, I see all these great things happening with people in their lives, and I want that, so I don't want to miss out. So FOMO is fear of missing out. So they want to start kind of do this, like, oh, I'm scared. I want to go build a coffee table. I always wanted to do something like that. Simran's doing it. Look at his horn and feather design. If I said it wrong,
yeah,
look at his horn and feather design. Instagram. He's doing all these crazy things with blow torches and Then he goes, and he's also a marine biologist, and he sees the whales' blowholes up close. And yeah, I know, I'm just playing, but yeah, so he actually is playing rock paper scissors, mostly with rocks and things like that are in the ground. But little do they know, right, that you have to hustle with your job, you have to hustle, doing these things, and then on the weekend, even to sort of support your hobby, you still have to hustle to do that. You can't do everything. You have to kind of make it work. But the Instagram effect is like, and even our parents had this Instagram effect. Look at Balvinder. He is doctor.
Yeah, it's comparing. Yeah.
100%.
Like,
100%.
I don't care that he's a doctor, Dad.
What's going to be really cool,
musician.
We talked about like with Bugs and Drugs, it's like struggling as first generation children of immigrants. I feel like this ties in perfectly because now as we build our families, as we have kids and we figure that out, what will our perspective be on how open will we be to when our kid says, hey, Dad, I want to be a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Or I want to be a Twitch streamer.
I think we all kind of want to be YouTubers. But can I add something before you go down that rabbit hole? Because I want to add you a new rung to this ladder that we're climbing down.
Okay.
The other thing is, and I don't condone this, but there is a caste system in India that creates certain jobs for you based on that caste system. And then we come here and like, I straight up, like, I'm not using, my parents didn't say anything that I'm about to say. I'm making this up as an example, but it was very similar to what I've experienced with other people in my, not family, like distant family, close, Barde family, like the extended family in English. That's the word I'm looking for. So I was like, I want to be a musician. I learned how to play tabla growing up. I played it in the Gurdwara. A lot of you know that. And, then that took me into other avenues of music. But then I'd hear people in the community saying, Ota, whatever derogatory caste you want to use in Punjabi culture.
Yeah.
And then they show me Kuldeep Manik. I'm like, yo, check out that guy with Kuldeep Manik. Oh, Tolki play karda. Oh, idda da banda hai. It's like, well, you're listening to it, man. Like you're feeling this vibe. Like, I learned this. You sent me to the Gurdwara to learn these things. Well, my dad sent me technically, but let's just say as a culture, you guys are okay with me playing tabla on stage with Kirtan.
But then I'm not allowed to excel at it as a career.
Then you say it's this low caste type of profession to do that.
Yeah. Like, there was stigma around that when I played dole too. And that's a part of the reason why I stopped, sadly. Or playing, at least playing professionally or playing for pay, I should say.
Yeah, and that's the other aspect. That's one of the reasons I stopped DJing is because from that same mental state of mind that a lot of it wasn't really people that were grown up here in the Western world. It was people that came from India, Punjab with that type of thinking that you're like a knocker. You work for me. I'm throwing money at your face. You have to pretty much kiss my ass all night. And there was me, the Canadian with an axe in the back of his truck, no fear redneck, saying, okay, how about you take that money and I shove it, where? And then I used to have to carry a Louisville Slugger with me during all gigs.
Yep.
And I carried it. You guys all know this. And so this mentality creates these problems. And then really it comes back to square one in our first Bugs and Drugs episode, which is identity. Now, coming from a different culture, being born here, where do we fit in? Where do we fit in jobs? Where do we fit in our school system? Yeah. We look different, but you
didn't have anybody.
Cowboys.
You didn't have anybody outside of your home environment or your cultural space telling you couldn't be something. Every message you got from Western media, from everything, you would be whatever you want. Even though for a lot of us, we know the reality of how racism works in Western society is that where not everyone has the same opportunities. Yeah, but the idea of opportunity is available to all of us, right? Or at least there is some promise of it. Whether or not that society fulfills that promise to us is another thing. But yeah, the messaging is, hey man, you can be whatever you want. Yeah. And I look at it and I'm thinking to myself, there's a lot of conflicting ideas here. And not all of this is all even. And there's an element to it where you start to feel trapped, right? You go down a line or a series of things long, like down that road long enough, eventually you come to a point where you feel bottlenecked a little bit. And I know I felt that before, and I feel it to an extent now as well.
And
I mean,
this, boys and girls, and all other people that are watching, is why Paghs and Drugs is episodic. Like there's more part.
It's
Because
the
you can't
struggle.
just-
Yeah. It's
you
the
can't just
struggle
have
of
it all
figuring out
within an
how
hour
we
or so,
fit.
right?
Yeah. How do we fit into this world as, even like we talked about in previous episodes, as international students coming to this new country?
Yeah,
how do we fit in? How do we fit in as first generation children of immigrants? How do our parents fit into this? How will our upcoming generations fit into this? So if you have any specific topics that you want us to talk about as it pertains to the topic of Paghs and drugs, leave it down in the comments.
Dude,
Shoot us a message on our social media. But I feel like this is a pretty positive place to end up on. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and cultural identity aside, do what you want.
follow your heart.
Except when it comes to our kids, and we're going to become like our cultural parents. Of
Mere niyaane ne doctor banna, that's
when they,
it.
when they used to
much.
say, this caste can't marry this caste, you know what they're going to say now? एक कुड़ी दी कोविड वैक्सीन नहीं कीती होई तू इतना नहीं ब्याह करना तेरे बच्चों ਨੂੰ ਬਿਮਾਰੀ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਣੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਕਰੋ show finish bye.
Yeah, so I think like that one thing I want to end on, just to throw it in there, just since the topic was a little bit about parenting and our experience, I just want to like just quickly add, it's like I think like our role is to really, the thing that was a struggle really was communication at the end of the day. And effectively communicating with like our parents, and then there's an understanding aspect too in terms of mentality, but with us we have that privilege of like going through that walk of life. So I think us knowing those things as parents or potential parents, and really it's like it'll be up to us to make sure that we help guide and navigate in the right way, so that there's understanding of what the life is like, after high school, etc., and navigating into like the working world, right?
And I'll finish off here. I'll say that you're gonna make mistakes. That's gonna happen. Life's gonna knock you down. It's gonna kick you in the teeth. I don't think I'd be the person today if I didn't experience the failures that I had early on. I'd be a horrible person right now, to be honest with you. I'd be a doctor and I'd be an asshole. I'd be terrible. But the point that I was trying to make is that these things are nothing exists in object permanence, right? Like you're not the same person you were 5 years ago. If you change your mind about what you want to do, that's okay. If it takes you 10 years to figure that out, that's okay for the most part. I mean, as long as you're living up to the majority of your responsibilities and you're not, mainlining heroin, behind a superstore in Mill Woods, life, there's ways back, and there's ways back from that too. But like, take your time, figure things out. But if you happen to go down a road there that you find yourself where you don't want to be in, there's always time. There's always time to figure. My mom became a nurse in her 40s, and people were telling her like, "Why are you so old? You back to school? This is no good." My mom's like, "Bruh, I'm doing this for me.
What I want to do.
Family." Yeah,
what my expectations of myself are.
Yeah, and there's aspects
important.
like
and just to add to that, I did change my career when I was almost 30.
Yeah,
which also was like people going, "Whoa, like isn't that too late?" I'm like,
bruh, same.
No,
same. I've been working in geo for since 2019, and I'm not working in geo anymore. I'm doing something geo adjacent, and then I might go back to school. Well, who knows?
So having said that, I think this is a good place to wrap the show.
Yeah.
Guys, don't give up on your dreams. If you change your mind and you have the capacity to do something new, don't give up.
And hey, your dreams can change. Dreams can change too.
Peace out, everyone.
Sometimes you have a bad dream. Sometimes you have a good dream.
Good dream. Dreams are dreams.
Sometimes good, sometimes shit.